Let's go. All right, here we are. The end of the tonal painting. Completed and done. Pretty happy with the way that this thing turned out. And within this video, what I want to talk to you guys about is polish and final touches within your paintings and getting them over the line. If you're doing tonal painting, if you're doing color painting, here are some tips and tricks for you to do when you are wrapping things up, right? Within digital design, we've got the ability that you don't would not normally have within, if you're doing a traditional medium, to where we can really crunch and change the colors all the way up until the final stage and the way that those colors are behaving. And that is what I've done with this painting. So let's break it down. Compositionally, I think that this painting is doing what it's supposed to do. Normally, we read art left to right, but I think that this is doing a nice job of asking the viewer to begin on the far right-hand side with the way that it's composed, and then make their way over into the busier and the noisier sections. So this red line here represents the eye movement that happens throughout this painting, and I think it's pretty successful. I've never done a composition like this before, but it's got some interesting things going on where it's got the character is. Oh, my screen isn't sharing. Thank you so much for letting me know. Here I am just chatting away. Let's try that again. All right, here we go. Red line is the composition. So we're going from the right-hand side over to the left within this. And I think it does a good job of framing out the character over on the right-hand side and giving him enough isolated space and being surrounded by horizontal lines that it and he's got enough movement with his pace and his run to bring you over to the next character that's at the same height as him, and then down into the group of people to see what it is that they're so excited about, and that it is sort of a nice frozen moment in time. Now, this painting does start to break apart when we get a little bit closer, right? So the guy's face isn't rendered as tightly as it could be. There's always more that you can do with this, but I think that it's doing what it needs to do to be able to tell this story accurately. Um, so we've got all our characters down here. When I'm looking at this thing, I think that could have added more characters over behind the guy, or like on the dirt behind the patio or the porch that he's standing on, but it's okay. That didn't work out. Didn't do that. We've got a nice little crowd of folks all bustled together in the left-hand side. And yeah, looks like a dig. Good sense of scale. I like the way that the little truck way back there has got the open carriage on it to give you the idea of what the scale of this dig site actually is very quickly, to give some kind of human reference there, and then placing this little fella right down here next to the arm on the ground to give you an idea of what the scale of the arm actually is in comparison. And that's working pretty nicely for me. So let's look at those final steps. Now, if you look over at my layers in the right-hand side, I've flattened my entire image. And the way that I do this is I go to image or layer, flat image, or sometimes merge visible. And let's just do it real quick so I can show you. So we're going to discard the hidden layers. And then I'm going to grab my selection marquee, pull it across my canvas, hit Control C to copy, and then Control Z or Command Z if you're on a Mac, and then Control Shift, holding all three of them down and hitting V. And now all of a sudden we get a flattened image where we still have all of our layers. Ooh, that's scary looking. There we go. So now we've got everything on one layer. This is where I start to make global corrections, which I was not able to do before this. And here's what so I've really only got one layer, and I did some little pushes and pulls previously. So you can see I'm darkening up these characters down the bottom left-hand side just to add a little bit more of a vignette. and push our attention up into the character who's holding the tablet. So letting those guys fade back, right? It's about deciding what needs to be rendered. There's enough of that character there, you can still see them. But here's how the painting turned out without this final layer. So that's what it looked like before. It's a subtle shift, still the exact same painting, but you can see that this is just going in and darkening up some of those colors here and there. It's uh, a little bit more rich with the contrast. Now, with this, I've gone through and I've erased out an awful lot of it. So let's do that color overlay on there. It's set to screen. So the red that you're seeing right here is the new layer that I color crunched. Let's turn it up even higher. There we go. Oh, that's obnoxious on your eyes. I'm sorry. But now you can see that I've taken the fuzzy brush and deleted out some of these things, right? So the side of the barn was becoming just a little bit too dark. So I brought it back to its original color by erasing out this one top layer. And this allows me to do some other things. Let's go in and I'm kind of looking at this, right? So we got Buddy's face right here. And you can see that I wasn't quite happy with the shadow on the cheek, so I changed that just by smudging and painting on this one global layer. And this is where I just slow down and really kind of look and step back and see if I'm feeling like anything is pushing too far up, and is anything grabbing my attention? What can I do at this stage to be able to adjust the color balance, brightness and darkness to help make the composition work even more, right? So I think that the barn is doing a good job of pushing forward with the amount of black that it has going on there up at the rooftop, which contrasts nicely around this fella's arm. I'm happy with the lighting that I painted on the character's shirt. Same thing with the highlight that's spilling over onto this guy's button-up shirt that's outside of the cabin. And yeah, it's a pretty unique composition. I think I ended up with, in the end here, looks like 101 layers is how many I went through on this painting, which is quite a bit. I've been over 200 before on paintings, but yeah, that's by compressing all the layers together, flattening the image, and then performing your final edits. And the way that I changed the colors here was I used the levels tool, image. So I'm going to go to image, adjustments, and levels, or Control L. And I like the levels tool. The levels tool is like checkers. The curve tool for adjusting the colors is like chess. Checkers, nice and easy. Over here on the left-hand side, you've got your blacks, right? So I can increase the blacks within the scene. Over here on the right-hand side, you've got the whites. All right, so that's adding more, ooh, burn your eyes, brightness to the entire scene. And then in the middle here, we've got our grays. So we can take those middle grays and move them either darker or push it up and it becomes brighter. And this will give you enough quick little, very quick, subtle variation within the colors that allows you to be able to experiment with the overall composition. Usually when I'm doing a tonal painting like this, I can get it 88% of the way there, but I tend to paint not pushing the values quite as much as I should, and that's what this does in the very end. You're making 1,000 decisions while you're painting, and then this is that time for you to be able to go back and really be your own self-critic and just trust me, if you do this little levels trick at the end of your paintings, you will feel better about them and they will look quite a bit better. This is how you just take it a little bit further. Let me show you that curves thing real quick. So under the image, drop down, adjustments, curves, or Control M, you get this graph. And each time you click on something here, it creates like a little keyframe. You can see that it's basically doing the same thing. Left is going to be brighter, right is darker. But then we have more subtle variations that we can start to create. So created one keyframe, and I can go really, really close on this thing. And it just starts to get bizarre with what it does very, very quickly. Not an expert at it. I'm sure there's another YouTube video out there with someone who is a master of that curve tool, and it's probably really powerful. I should learn it, but I haven't quite done that yet. So, anywho, when it comes to this painting, let's turn off that global layer and I'll show you just some last minute little things that I did. So inside the window, it looked like this beforehand. I think there's maybe two of them here. Yeah. So that's what it looked like inside the building. And you can see that he's still popping. He's still showing up. And we get the idea that the light's coming in from the window, but by adding it a little bit brighter and just even more bright, now he really starts to stand out a lot more. And that's what's giving us that nice glow that's going on inside the space and really pulling our attention those highlights around the character on the right hand side to sort of force you to look at it the way that I want the audience to view this thing. Put some little shadows. Like I said, over 100 layers. I was pretty tired, and it wasn't the most important thing to me in the world to do a super detailed paint job of the items inside there. They just need to be just enough, just a little bit to carry the detail because there's so much other detail that's going on within the rest of the shot. Other things that I really like that I think worked out well, let's turn our global layer back on again, is how the shading is working on the character standing outside. All right, so this guy, we've got our highlights. Get my brush up. So you got the highlight going on around him right there, which is spilling pretty nicely. But as we start to get to the groin area on the character, that's where it becomes the darkest. And then we're getting a little bit of bounce light from the ground that's coming up onto his leg. And then it becomes darker again down by his feet. So he's really got kind of a gradient here. It's dark in this section, and then we start to move into a lighter block right here, which I think is working pretty well overall in this guy when we look at the lighting that's happening and thinking about the way that it would actually fall within the scene. Yeah, I like the light wipe that's going around this character's face. It's not entirely accurate to how the lighting would work, but I think that the important part here was being able to show the smile on him and the enthusiasm, and that comes across fairly well. So yeah, that's this painting in a nutshell. I've gone through in the past sometimes and gone, section by section, but it gets a little bit confusing without doing this just on one global layer. So like I could merge all my layers for the crowd of people and just do a specific edit on them, but it's sort of like herding cats at that point. It's just a little bit easier for me to be able to do it on one global layer. So yeah, this is a short video, but here's how that painting turned out, and I hope that gives you some things to think about at the very end of your painting. You can also go through on this global layer, burn some stuff out to darken very specific areas, or you can use the dodge tool if you want to lighten some areas up just a little bit more. But yeah, those final global edits after you've created all these layers and gone through all this thought is a great way to be able to make sure that you're crossing the finish line on these paintings and that they look really successful in the end. So thanks for hearing me out about that, and yeah, stay tuned for the next one.